The Things They Carried. Please like and subscribe to support the channel. The book is written as a collection of short stories told by Tom O'Brien about his experience in the Vietnam War and his squad, the Alpha Company. The first story, The Things They Carried, about the items the soldiers carried with them. The items are both intangible, like guilt and fear, as well as physical, like matches, morphines, M16 rifle, and M&Ms. Lieutenant Jimmy Cross carries reminders of his former love, Martha. His leadership is often distracted by his daydreaming of Martha, and one of his members, Ted Lavender, is killed because of it. He burns and throws away all of his reminders to focus on the mission. Love. After the war, O'Brien wants to write a story about Cross and Martha, and Cross agrees, hoping Martha will read it and come find him. Spin. A series of unrelated moments from the war. Fellowship among the members. They write a joking hate letter to the draft board. They learn a rain dance in between battles. On the Rainy River. O'Brien tells the story of how he ended up in Vietnam. He received his draft notice in June 1968 and drove to the Canadian border to dodge the draft. He stays at the Tip Top Lodge and, while in a rowboat with the hotel manager, he decides that disappointing his family and guilt of dodging are much greater than his political convictions to dodge. He goes back home to Worthington, Minnesota, and then to Vietnam. Enemies and Friends. Two stories about Strunk and Jensen. The two begin annoying and teasing one another, but soon develop a relationship. They become really close, and they swear an oath that if either gets mutilated in battle, they will put the other out of their misery. However, when Strunk steps on a landmine, he begs Jensen to spare him. Jensen complies, and Strunk is taken off by medical. Jensen later finds out that Strunk died quickly and is relieved. How to tell a war story. O'Brien talks about telling war stories and how the truth is delicate and malleable. He concludes that the truth is less important than the message behind the story. The Dentist. O'Brien remembers the story of Kurt Lemon, a member of the squad, fainting at an army dentist checkup. In order to save himself from embarrassment in front of his peers, he convinces the dentist to pull a tooth that is perfectly healthy. Lemon later dies stepping on a rigged mortar round. Sweetheart of the song Trabong. O'Brien tells the legend of the war of a place so isolated on the Song Trabong River that a soldier flies his hometown girlfriend in. She takes care of the men at first, but slowly embraces the local Vietnamese forest culture. One day she begins wearing a necklace made of human tongues, and then shortly after, she disappears into the woods. Stockings. Henry Dobbins wears the stockings his girlfriends gave him around his neck when he sleeps. He believes they even give him special powers. Church. They discover an abandoned building being used as a church. It is inhabited by monks who bring them food. It brings comfort to the men, and Henry Dobbins considers becoming a priest, but doesn't. The Man I Killed. O'Brien imagines the life of the victim he killed with a grenade in My Key. He imagines his childhood and what his life would have been like if he survived the war, torturing himself with guilt. Ambush. O'Brien's 9-year-old daughter asks if he's killed anyone. He lies and says no, but he imagines how he would tell her about it. He then goes into more detail about the killing and his feelings surrounding it. Style. A young girl dances through the streets of her burned village. The men ponder between themselves if it is a ritual. Azar mocks the girl, but Dobbins rebukes him. Speaking of courage. Norman Boker is struggling making his life meaningful after his service back in his Iowa hometown. He imagines conversations, but has no family or friends. He thinks about Kiowa's death. Notes. O'Brien wrote the previous story at the request of Norman, who killed himself 3 years after O'Brien wrote it. O'Brien then thinks about his own struggles. He would have struggled even more without Harvard or writing. In the Field. The story of Kiowa's death, who multiple people feel responsible for. They later find Kiowa's body in the mud. Good form. He tells the reader that the story he told about killing a man was a lie, and he wanted to make the reader feel emotion, and that matters more than the truth. Field trip. O'Brien takes his daughter to the site of Kiowa's death and leaves a pair of his shoes in the mud to get closure. The Ghost Soldiers. O'Brien was injured twice during the war. The second time his doctor was incompetent and almost left O'Brien dead. O'Brien and Azar later prank the doctor to get revenge. He then lets go of his anger towards the doctor. Nightlife. Medic Rat Kiley gets terrified while they are under attack. It scars him, and he later shoots himself in the foot to get out of service. The lives of the dead. O'Brien's childhood crush had died from a brain tumor. He learned that in the war, people tell stories of the dead to keep their memory alive. He now does the same with Linda, and it has helped him with his grief. Please like and subscribe to support the channel.